Priya, good morning. Manoj here.
Good morning, Manoj. Hope all is all well.
Yeah, do you have Mizanur's number?
I hope I have. Let me WhatsApp him. I'll send it to you. Just hold on.
Yeah, sure.
Hello, Manoj. Just sent that number to you. Okay. Manoj, can you hear me? Okay.
Sorry, Priya. Yeah, sorry.
I've sent the number. I WhatsApp the number. Okay.
His number? Okay, I'll call him.
Hi, Manoj. Can you hear me? Manoj, can you hear me? Manoj? Rafid sir, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, he just pinged me joining in 2 minutes. Okay.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. I was trying to reach him, but he was not picking up.
Abhi, he pinged me saying that I told him Manoj is trying to reach him. So he said joining in 2 minutes. Okay. Not a problem.
All right, fine. Thank you so much. In the meanwhile, those who have joined can just put in their PMI ID and contact contact email so that we can send you the PDO mailer. Good morning, Mizanur. Have you joined?
I don't see him, Manoj. I'll just.
No, I saw. He was there. He was there.
Oh, okay. Okay. He's there. Hi, Mizanur. Are you there? He's there. I see him.
Mizanur bhai, can you hear me?
his microphone and his video is disabled. Can you just? Is it something that we have to do, Manoj?
No, nothing we have to do. I'm trying to unmute him also, but Mizanur, can you hear me now? His video also seems on, but I don't see him.
Okay, I also don't see him. He dropped off. Looks like some issue.
No, he's there.
Is there? Okay.
Mizanur?
I guess it would be better for them to re-log in because I too face this issue. This is Rafael.
Yeah, hi Rafael. Good morning. Mizanur, can you just log back? Yeah.
Is video compulsory? Is video mandatory?
Hi Mizanur. Good morning. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, it's not mandatory, but it would be good if you could show yourself to people, and then after that, towards the middle of the session, if you want, you can switch off the video.
No, but actually, I am having my problem with the webcam of my PC. So that is why I'm asking.
Okay.
Then I will have to join from my mobile, which I won't be able to see much on the screen.
No, then that's fine. Yeah, so we'll make do without the video in that case.
Yeah, but next time I'll try to correct it. I just noticed it that webcam is having problem.
Yeah, sure. Yes, Mizanur. Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Mizanur, if you want, we can test your you can share your screen so that
Okay, sure. Just a second. So you guys can see my screen, right?
yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So
We'll wait for a couple of minutes. It's just some waiting for everybody to join in.
sure, no problem.
Hi, Girish. Good morning. Girish, you're on mute.
Good morning.
I will share my. I will send you my slide share. Then you can later on, display it later in the break.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. All right. So let's start. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mizanur bhai. Today's speaker for the day is Mizanur Rahman. He's an agile evangelist, technology enthusiast, and problem solver from Dhaka, Bangladesh. He's a software architect and agile coach in more than 17 years of experience. He's a certified Scrum Master and the first certified Scrum professional from Scrum Alliance Bangladesh. He's also certified Scrum product owner, certified Scrum developer, certified agile leadership credentials, and safe agilist. He's the founder of Agile Bangladesh chapter and provides agile coaching, mentoring, and is involved in community activities for agile. He has been a speaker at different regional and global Scrum gatherings for the last few years. Welcome, Mizanur Bhai. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And everyone, very good morning. And hopefully, I am not going to ruin your weekend morning with this, lots of talking for next 2 hours. And let's make it, little bit interactive. So if you have any questions or anything, anytime, we'll love to actually answer those. And just share your questions through the chat so that during the break, we can actually go through the questions and answer. So the topic that I'm going to cover today is about testing business ideas, developing products in an agile way. To give you the context, like why this topic is important, I give you a real example of, something that I have faced in last few years. So I was actually working in a top healthcare startup in Bangladesh. So we used to build lots of new features almost like every morning. We have some new ideas, like groundbreaking ideas, and as per the management, those are the ideas that can actually make us, a huge success overnight. And most of the time, what we found is that once we had those ideas implemented, those were not actually, got the market as we would have expected. And one of the shocking part was that we spent so much time on development, so much time on releasing a product or feature, but it's actually not getting the desired result. And once we had such bad experience, and the experience was actually a little bit costly as well, because not only we are actually losing money, we are losing our time as well. And one such feature was actually kind of like pushed to us that we have to do it, and we did it almost like for 6 months development. It kind of like uh, you know impacted all our core stacks, kind of like having a cascading effect that, okay, we need to change this, change that. And we did it, almost like spending $1 million in 6 months. We released that product. After 1 year, we had to close the product. And the funny part was that the feature that we actually built for that, over costing $1 million, was actually not even getting a revenue of like say 0.001%, whatever we have spent. And suddenly the company decided that, okay, enough with the experiment, and let's just close this product feature and the product completely. And my question to them was, what was your instinct, or what was the base of your, decision that we are going to build this product or build this feature? And they couldn't actually give me any valid, answer. And that was the time then I was actually talking and kind of like getting the idea how we can validate business ideas even before we actually start implementing, even before we actually start planning to develop that, how we can actually test that our ideas are actually going to work. And this is actually the topic that I talked in Japan early this year, in the regional Scrum gathering in Tokyo. And I'm going to share a detailed version of it with you guys today. So most of the time, I believe all of us are here somehow related to product development or agile product development. We actually face this, kind of like a tendency from our management team or or our product team that we have tons of ideas, and these ideas are actually keep coming. Sometimes we actually copy ideas from our competitors. Sometimes we get, very lucrative ideas or new features that we need overnight. And these sort of ideas are kind of like coming almost every day, every hour, something like that. And as a result, we need to understand which idea is going to work for us and which ideas we are actually going to put it in our product. So if you look like this, that how we can actually make an idea to a good idea to a validated business. So that's actually we need to understand, because when we are actually having a startup, especially if we are developing a product, there will be tons of ideas, and these ideas will look like, very potential, very business worthy, and we actually go with the instinct that, okay, I believe this idea is going to work. I believe this is going to, make us like a unique product in the market, or, having a good USP for us. But the problem is that we kind of like live in a dream, or you can say kind of like hallucination, that yes, it's going to work. We know if we build it right, but once we actually build it right, we are actually not getting the right response from the market. So the whole topic that we are actually going to talk about, like how we get this, kind of like messy world of ideas, like, it's not clear, it's not a straight line, it's kind of like zigzag and not so much, clear vision. We want to actually get these ideas to an execution stage where we know that yes, this idea that we have actually validates our, understanding or our hypothesis that yes, this is going to work, and we will actually see how to actually transform these ideas into possible business cases and execution. So we'll actually see how we can do this. Now, why you actually want to do this? The simple thing is that when we have a rough idea, when we have kind of like not so proven ideas, the problem is that we are taking a huge risk, as an innovator or as an investor, that this product might work, this feature might work, but we don't know. But once we actually have this well-planned ideas that actually validates our understanding, validates our, reasoning, it reduces our uncertainty and risk by a big margin. And we'll see how we can actually reduce it. So this whole presentation is actually based on the book called Testing Business Ideas. That's from Wiley. And this is actually a very nice book about how we can actually design a product and our, ideas into much better way. So what we're going to talk about in next 2 hours is more about this detailed tools and techniques and, practices that we can actually follow to make sure that yes, once we have an idea, how to actually take it to the execution step with proper validation and proper decision making. So what we are actually we are seeing on the screen is actually, we call it a business concept design. So in a general or in a real life world, what we have is that we have a very good product team who decides on what are the, features that we are going to have, what is the roadmap of the, product, when the product is going to release and everything. And most of the time we take this decision based on, based on our business model. And based on the business model, we actually decide which feature is coming, when it's coming. And this has been the practice for long. Now, what we are actually proposing now, or what we are actually going to see in this talk, is that based on the business model, we are actually going to have two different wings, kind of like, giving wings to your ideas. First, we are going to have a section called business design, where we will actually ideate our, ideas, that what we are actually going to do. And we kind of build those ideas, and then we are going to test whether our ideas actually gonna work or not. And after that, we are actually going to build it and follow our product roadmap. So this is the concept that's been proposed by the authors, that we call it business concept design. So business concept design is that we will be actually turning our vague ideas or our market insights or our other different source of ideas into a solid business model. So what we see is that if you have an idea, if you have a solid business model, and if you have a value proposition, that means that yes, we are going to have some business, solid business, kind of like something that we can actually win the market, or something that you can actually take to the market, and it's a win-win situation for the business. And this is the circle that we are actually going to follow. It's kind of like a loop that it continues. It's not actually something like, okay, we did something and we have done, whether we are successful or not, we are actually going to move to the product release. So this circle from the business design to test, then again back to business design, again back to test, and then we decide whether we are ready to actually take the ideas to the market or not. So this is an iterative process, and we are going to run it in an agile way, so that we can actually iterate over our ideas, validate them, then prioritize them, and get to the development. So basically, the core idea of testing your product ideas is that we want to reduce our risk. And by reducing risk, is like we have some great ideas, but how to actually test those, or how to actually experiment with those. So what you say is that once we have a big business ideas, like groundbreaking ideas that can change the whole world, we just don't go and build a whole product or implement the whole idea in one go. So in agile way, we always say that we do it incremental and iterative way. Same here, we are actually going to do it in an incremental and iterative way. So what we're gonna do is that we are gonna divide the whole problem into small chunks, and we want to make it testable so that we can actually test those hypotheses, and we can actually assess our risk. So normally we have three type of risk that we actually cover with our hypothesis. We call it the desirability. For example, if we have an idea and we want to actually make sure that if our customers are actually willing to have that particular feature or product with them, so we are actually kind of like trying to find out whether customers are interested in our product or our idea. So we call it desirability risk. Then we have this feasibility. For example, we have a great idea, like for example, we want to send people over moon but without a rocket. So that sounds like great idea, that's a desirability thing, but is it feasible? So maybe not. So whether we have a great idea, we can build it or not, so that's actually something we decide based on the feasibility risk. Like, yes, we want to build it, but maybe we don't have the right technology or the right team or the right tool set to actually build it at this moment, or maybe the the whole resource thing. Third is the viability. Like, is the idea enough to earn money for us? So sometimes you can have great ideas, but it might not be a viable business model, because at the end of the day, if we are actually not earning money from our services and the products that we are developing, then it's not gonna work, because most of the companies or corporates, they are actually trying to maximize their profits or revenue models. So if your product is actually not earning enough, the example that I gave, that we spent $1 million for a particular feature to develop, but unfortunately that didn't even return us few $1,000s in 1 year. So that was kind of like not viable for us. So we had to actually stop that product and feature completely. So viability is another thing that we need to understand, and we actually want to make sure that whatever ideas that we are actually taking for development or test is actually viable for us. And this is actually how we are gonna run the whole iterative process. So what we are gonna do is that once we have the team, the product team we will call, or just a team, a cross-functional team who will actually work with the product ideas. We will have a separate product team who will actually decide the business model canvas. Based on that, we will generate different ideas, and from these different ideas we will actually create some business prototypes. We assess those ideas, and then from those ideas we'll maybe picking few ideas to the hypothesis stage. Based on the hypothesis, we are actually going to do some experiments, and these experiments have multiple options. So even a single idea can be experimented in a different ways, and we'll actually explore roughly around 40 plus ways to experiment our ideas. And we'll actually discover, we'll actually select an experiment, and we'll do the validation. And based on the experiment, we'll learn something, and that particular learning will actually enable us to decide that whether we are going ahead with our idea implementation or not. And while we are actually doing this, we are actually trying to create a mindset. So whenever you are working in a product team, and if you are not okay to fail, then it's not the actually right environment for the team. So what we want to actually do is that we want to make sure that our team is feeling positive. They are actually okay to take risk, and also they have the organization support to actually do that. And by doing these experiments again and again, we are actually making sure that we are capable enough to avoid any pitfalls that is actually coming. We are learning through our experimentations. So we are not going to take any business decision just on our kind of intention or something like that. We will be more based on experimentation and the results. And also we will be there to actually encourage more experiments. So we should be an organization who are actually loves to actually do the experimentations for our ideas. And typically what we do is that we say this is a 4-part process. So first we design the team. Then we have a team who will actually handle all the product, ideation. The creativity part will be from a design team, or we call the design the team. It's a cross-functional team. Then that team will actually shape the ideas. Then we'll actually move to test. We actually create a hypothesis. We do experiment. We learn, then we decide, and we manage like when and how we are actually going to implement those. And once we test actually those experiments, we have the third stage we call experiments, where we actually select an experiment and we discover and validate. And by doing this, we are actually getting to the 4th stage, where we are actually creating a mindset of testing ideas. So what we do is that we call it a TDPD, test-driven product development. Then rather than we are actually developing any product anytime, we are actually focusing more about a test-driven approach for our product. And whenever we are actually doing this, the basic thing, the first thing that we need to actually have a team. And this particular team will be, the key ingredient of our success of the product ideation to actual implementation. And when we have a team, it's the core cross-functional team, their dedicated team, and what they need is that they need an environment. So an environment where they can actually feel safe to experiment, feel safe to fail, and their learning will be from the failure or the experimentations. So your organization need to actually support the team, create the right environment. They must have proper budget, they must be funded, there must be a dedicated team, cross-functional team. It might be consist of legal, your business, your finance, marketing, all everyone together. They'll be working as a team, and this particular team will have authority to actually get those ideas, test those ideas in a different way, and they will be able to take those decisions within themselves, like, okay, whether we want to move ahead with this particular feature or this way or that way. So you need to have a team for the whole product development. And it's not only about just a product owner role, it's more about having someone as a product management team, someone who's actually, we call it the PMO, the, product management office, like where we are actually having this sort of multiple people who are working actually the product part. So this particular product team needs to be there and having the right environment. And the next thing that we look for a team is actually a behavior. Like, yes, we have a team, we have a cross-functional team. Now, whether we are actually having the right alignment or not. So in order to ensure the behavior part, the middle layer, we actually create a team alignment map. And team alignment is actually, whenever we are having a team for anything, it can be for the product development, the research, and the validation part, we'll have a team alignment map. We have a cross-functional team, everyone will come together, they will know about their mission, they will know about their engagement period, that how long they are going to work on their, and they will prepare their joint objectives, like why they are in the team. And they will actually also come up with a joint commitments, like, yes, this is actually what we are committing. And they will decide on the resources, what sort of resources they need, and also the risks. Now, once they actually fill this 4 section, what they will actually do, at the bottom you'll see a little bit of arrow sign. So actually what will happen is that we are going back to the next previous step. So once we have assesses the risks, we'll actually come up with a plan, like how to mitigate that risk, and we'll come back to the resource part, that how we can actually handle this risk with our resource planning. So once the resource part is done, then we'll back to the objective part, and we'll come up with a solid date, like, okay, this is our objective, by this week or by this month we want to actually complete this objective. We call this team alignment map. And you can actually find this map from the teamalignment.co, and this sort of diagrams are really getting popular, and we'll see few more diagrams like this and charts like this to actually use in our product development. So once we have the team alignment, so we know the behavior of the team, we have a team, and we have the right environment. So the next step is actually for us to actually go for the product part. So this is actually part we talk the business design part. So we have the business model canvas. Based on the business model canvas, we ideate. So we actually create different ideas, and then we create business prototypes, and we assess those. So it's a cycle that we actually divide into 2 parts. First, the generation part. Second one is synthesize. So what we do is that first we generate lots of ideas, and based on those ideas, we pick few of the ideas, create some prototypes, and based on those prototypes, we assess that whether this is the possible implemented ideas or not. So this is the business design part that we are gonna talk about now. The basic of actually business design is this particular canvas. So we call it the business model canvas. It's a simple, canvas designed by a strategizer. So what we do is actually for any particular product or any particular feature, we want to create a business model canvas. And this particular business model canvas has different segments. So we know about our partner segment, we know about customer segments, so we know who are our customers, what are the relationships. We have the channels, like which channels we are actually delivering to our customers, the value proposition, like what values we are actually adding to our customers, our key activity, key resources, and everything is listed. At the bottom, we have this cost structure and revenue stream. So we are actually focusing more about our financial part, our customer, and our value proposition, like what we are actually going to do. So this is actually a very basic, bare bone model for business model canvas. And for any particular product development, we would love to actually use this so that we have a clear idea why we are actually building this product or feature.
Is it same as the MVP we say in agile methodology?
Yeah, so if you look at the whole thing, we'll actually coming back to different one. MVP is a way to validate your idea.
Okay.
So it's a minimum viable product, but we'll actually talk about MVP as well to validate our idea in the validation section. So there are tons of other ideas. So today I'm going to show you 40 plus ideas, how to actually validate those things or how to actually generate those ideas. And MVP is one of the 40 ideas that we are going to talk about today. So there's lots of more. But business model canvas, or simple the BPC, we actually use this mainly in our product owner class or product manager training and coaching. And this is actually proven to be one of the nicest way to come up with our business models. More visual, right to the point, not too verbose or kind of like with lots of literature. We want to focus in different segments and the key points. So the business model canvas, when the strategist actually came up with this, it was really kind of like took the world as a surprise, and they were actually really liking this model. It's like very simple, lean, and we can actually utilize it any particular segment, whether it's a technology product or regular product, non-digital product. You can actually use this canvas almost in every possible product and feature. And there's a one part called value propositions, and ultimately what we did is that this value proposition actually is a bigger segment and requires more details. So what they did is that they prepared another chart for the value proposition part. So we have these two parts. We have the value proposition and we have the customer segment, and we try to relate with them. So we actually are trying to create that what are the gains that we are trying to create, or what are the gain for the customer that we are actually proposing from our product and services. Say for a particular feature that we're adding gains for that, what are the pain that we are trying to relieve for the customers? And again, from the customer part, what are the gains they are going to have if they actually use our product? What are the pains that they are actually feeling at this moment with other products in the market or their current situation? And also the customer jobs, like what they do, what are they actually trying to achieve. So when we actually match these two, we have a customer segment and we have a value proposition that this is the value that we are adding. We try to match this together, and based on that we actually generating lots of ideas. Like, okay, for example, you have a problem with your home internet. Now, how to actually solve this problem? And we can say that, okay, our value proposition is that we can provide high-speed internet with a very minimum cost. That's fine. Now, how to actually solve that problem? Maybe their problem is that they don't have enough speed during the night time or a certain period of time, or they don't have consistent electricity, or the connections are not stable, signals are weak. So there are lots of things we can actually discuss. Now, based on this discussion, we can actually come up with a value proposition that yes, we'll have some sort of like a dedicated service line for all our customers with fiber optic, and it will be available 24/7 and always guaranteed a minimum of this much speed. So that's a value proposition that we're actually adding, and we present it to customer like, okay, this is our customer segments and this is what we are actually adding. So whenever we are having this business model, we also need to prepare the value proposition canvas so that we understand what sort of values that we are actually adding to our customers and why our customers are going to avail this feature or the product. Based on that, we actually say that we have this three part that we talked about already, that feasibility, can we actually do this, whether we have the capacity or not. Then we have the desirability, like yes, we want to do these things. And the problem is that if you are a startup, you will actually find this, little bit in different way, because almost every feature, everything looks desirable to us, almost everything. So in my last startup experience says that every morning when I used to go to office, the first thing my CXOs will ask me, like, Mizan, can you do it? Really follow a process. So that's a desirability that we are actually maintaining. Then we have the feasibility, that okay, fine, you have this great idea, can we actually make it happen? Then based on that, okay, we can make it happen. Then we actually can say that, okay, is it viable? Like, for example, you are trying to have this great idea implemented or have this particular feature built in, but is it going to earn us enough money? For example, spending $1 million for a product feature and getting $10,000 in return doesn't actually make a good business proposition. So based on this, we actually need to take a decisions. It's not always that we are going to build a particular product or feature based on our desirability, feasibility, and viability, because if you look at the intersection, the segment is really small. So we definitely need more things to do. So we need to actually take a decision whether it's based on desirability or viability, or whether it's a desirability and the feasibility, or whether it's based on the feasibility and viability. So it's completely up to the decision for the team to take, that which one is actually suitable for us. And based on that, we actually going to talk about a new concept called assumption mapping. So all our ideas that we actually have is, kind of like, yes, greatest idea ever. And that's what I learned from my last job, that every idea our CMO, our CCO, CTO, CXO, they had is actually a groundbreaking idea, and it will change the world completely. It will take, our business to a different level. But unfortunately, it's not the case. We all know that, because everything sounds great or looks, prominent when you think about it. But once you start putting details out of it, try to get into deeper level, then you understand, okay, it might not be the right thing to do. So we are actually going to talk about a simple, mapping part. So what we want to do is that when we have some ideas, we have some hypotheses. Yes, if we do this, this is going to, uh, uh, do good for us. So what we are going to do is that we are going to use this quadrant model, and we are actually going to split in two ways, whether it is important for us or not important for us. So we have this horizontal line, and if we have this, above the line, that's actually important. If it's not, then it's actually going to below the line. Now, then we actually divide this important part into two parts. Do we have evidence that, okay, this is important, or we are just, assuming that our assumption is that, okay, this is actually gonna work, but it doesn't have any evidence that, yes, it's gonna work. So we then divide it into two parts again, have evidence and doesn't have any evidence. Now, when you're talking about important and have evidence, that means those are the clear business cases that, yes, we know, we have evidence, and we know this is important. So definitely on the top left block, we are going to do it. We're more focused on the top right block, where we know this is important, but we do not have the evidence. So this is the segment where we are going to do our experimentations. So all the experiments that we are actually going to talk about is actually belongs to the top right segment, that it is important, but we don't have evidence. So we want to actually create those test ideas, like how can you actually test those part and make sure that whether important or not. So this is how you can actually do. So when you are actually developing a product, you can actually, as a product team, you can prepare this assumptions mapping, that you are working with your hypothesis, and we are actually kind of like dividing into 4 segments where you know whether the feature is actually important for you and whether it's actually evident that, okay, if you do this, it's going to be impacting this part of your business, or it's going to make this happen or not. So these 2 parts are important: importance and the evidence part. So the talk that we are having is more on the top right segment, that we know, yes, every idea is important in our business, but how to validate them, what sort of evidence do we have that yes, this is going to work. So this assumptions mapping, we are actually going to focus on the right top side, which we are going to do the experimentations and find out whether our ideas are going to be great or not. So based on that, this is actually another strategizer, innovation. So what they came up is that once we have these, assumptions mapped, what we are actually trying to prove that whether these particular ideas have, impact or not. So we are going to move them from not evident to have evidence section, that yes, we have seen this and we are definitely going to have it done. So for doing that, we are actually going to create the test card. So they actually propose that whenever you're doing a feature or a product, just prepare your text card. And this text card actually have 4 sections. We have this hypothesis part. So first we develop an hypothesis, like why you are doing this, what is our general understanding, assumptions that we are actually doing this, then how we are going to test it, and when we actually test it, how we are going to measure it, like whether it was successful or not, and what are the criteria that will actually make sure that this particular test was a success. So this is a format, the left side is a format for the test card, and the right side is a sample test card. So for example, we want to add subscription for our service, and we believe that, okay, the subscription fee will be $20 for a month. Now, how do you actually verify that okay, we'll offer 14 days of free trial and then ask for purchase, and the measure is that the customer who sign up is going to have a subscription. That's actually our measure part. And when to know that whether our, a particular idea is working or not for this subscription, we assume that if it's more than 30%, at least 30% of free trial user will pay us after the end of their trial period for 3 months. That means, yes, we are successful with our idea. So this sort of card that you can actually make for each of your idea or your product feature, and you make sure that you put these notes and write this in details, like what is your hypothesis, how to verify them, how to measure them, and what will be the decision making part to move ahead with this ideation process for testing part. So this is a simple test card format. And then what we have is that based on this whole testing part, the same diagram, we actually do different things. For example, once we have some test, we have this, insight, like whether it's a new insight or whether it's a unclear insight. So if it's a new insight, whether we can actually, do some pivoting, we have some preservations, or if it's unclear, should we continue testing or not? And based on that, we actually try to create some hypothesis, like, okay, does our evidence that we actually get from this test supports our hypothesis? If it supports, then okay, fine, move to the next experiments. If it doesn't, do you want to kill the experiment or try something else, or you want to continue or trying? So the whole process is kind of like iterative process. It's not like once you do it, it's done. So it can take 2 or 3 iterations. It can actually take different testing ways to actually validate one single idea. So this is important to understand, that maybe you have an idea, last time you kind of like test it and validate it through one particular way. It might not, work with the next idea same way. So you always have to actually make sure that you have the right insight about your testing, that what sort of insights that we are actually getting from our test part, and whether it is going to work for us or not. And based on that, we actually create a learning curve. So whenever we do some test, we actually have two sort of learnings. It's like, it's a positive or it's something that, negative. For example, if it's a positive thing that, okay, we had some, test preparation and it went the way we wanted, or maybe it didn't went to the way we wanted. So how we do it? We have some evidence, like, okay, we believe that if we have a paid subscription, then our revenue model will be this, and our belief was that 30% of our free trial user will be our subscriber. And then we have actually observation, and we observed that, okay, in 3 months period, we actually observed that actually 5% of our free trial users are becoming our subscriber. So that's an insight that we have. And what is the learning that we learned? That maybe our pricing model is not good enough. So $20 a month was not a good pricing model. And what's the decision based on that? Maybe we'll do another testing with a pricing model of say $10 a month, or maybe a $5 a month. So this is a learning curve. So how we do it? We have some evidence. So we have this test card where we prepared what was our hypothesis, what we are going to do. And then based on that particular test, we had some insight. And based on this insight, we actually take a decision. So whenever we are actually doing these sort of things with our product development, what we have to understand is that if not everything is going to be perfect, or not everything is going to be, fruitful for us. So we have to decide, and this decision should be based on data rather than intuition. So this data will come from your test, your learning, and this particular template you can actually use for those things. It's not actually that you can't do those things without using those type of templates, but these are the best practices. Now we understand that, okay, we need to experiment, fine. And what we are going to do is that we are going to see what sort of experiments we can actually do. And we will actually follow a simple format for all these experiments. So we'll have different segments. For example, we have experiment name, we will have a simple experiment description, and then we will have cost, setup time, our evidence strength, and runtime. So for example, some experiments you can run within, say, few hours. Some experiments you can actually run in weeks. Some experiments you can run in months or maybe more. So we are actually putting different experiments into different categories. And also we are actually going to see the different experiments, whether they are actually fits in our desirability stage, feasibility stage, or viability stage. So the next few sections, we are going to focus all about our different experiments, like what sort of test we can actually do to validate our ideas, or how to actually get our new ideas and make sure that those are coming from in a better way, rather than no data backup or kind of like non-evident ideas. We want to create ideas those actually validates in the long run. So we are going to talk about two ways. We are going to talk about discovery and the validation. So we'll be actually talking about different experiments, one for discovery and one for validation. And what we are actually trying to balance is that when we are actually having an idea, as the time progresses, and we are still working on those ideas to validate, and we are actually delaying our execution, our spending levels will actually increase. So it will increase our cost. But the more time we actually take to validate our ideas, it's going to reduce our uncertainty and risk. Now we have to draw a balance that which way we want to go. So should we actually wait all the uncertainty and risk to go below a marginal level, or becomes zero, that there is no risk. But at that moment, maybe implementation of that particular idea will be really higher. So these sort of things we have to actually take a decision. So which particular experimentation techniques, tools that you are going to use is completely up to your choice, based on your product, based on your nature of business and everything. So we are actually going to talk about different ideas. Not necessarily all ideas will be, kind of like suitable for all the products, but it's up to you to come up with maybe your own ideas as well. So in our discovery experiments, we are actually going to talk about lots of things, almost like 30 different ideas. And if you look at the chart in my screen, you'll see that these are the timeline. So the rightmost ones are actually going to take more time, the left ones are going to take less times, and also the evidence strength. For example, if we do this particular test, and the results are actually kind of like give us the evidence that yes, it's going to work. So the highest evidence score is 5 and the lowest is actually almost like was 1. So what we are going to see is that we are going to go through each and every experiments. So this is actually the discovery experiments. Like we want to actually discover whether this particular feature is desirable or not. Then we actually move to the next one. So this is also the discovery part. And then we are actually going to the validation experiments. It's the same model that we have this timeline and also the evidence strength. So validation experiments will be more about once we have discovered an idea and we know that this is the idea that we need, then we are going to validate whether it's going to work or not. So these two particular segment we are going to talk about now. And another thing, like if you have these different business segments, you might not need all the 40 plus ideas or tools to use. So for different segments, we can actually have different sets of experiment sequence. For example, if you are actually having a B2B software sequence, maybe you can start with a customer interview, then discussion forum, maybe a boomerang, clickable prototype, pre-sale, and single feature MVP. So that can be a B2B sequence. But if you are kind of like, B2C sequence, so you can actually change it different ways. For example, you can do, which is fine. You do the search trend analysis, online ad, you are doing simple landing page, you're building email campaigns, you're doing some pre-sales, and then concierge. So each and every business segments can be different. So these are some proposed one. You can design your own sequence by yourself. Like, okay, this particular practice or this particular experiments is not actually suitable for our business. So what we can do is that we can define that which particular sequence we want to go with. So before we move to the different test, so I think we were supposed to take a break in 1 hour time. So before I move to the test section, I want to actually just answer if you have any questions or not regarding anything till the discussion. Can you hear me, Manoj?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. Yeah, I can hear you. So any questions? When we are actually taking the break, Manoj?
We'll take the break now, and we can take it for about 10 minutes max.
Fine. Okay, max 10 minutes. Let's try to come back within 5 minutes because this next slide section will be actually a continuous one. Okay. Problem.
Yeah, and in the meanwhile, during the break, I'll just run my slide share, okay?
Okay, sure. Do that.
Thank you. Girish. Girish, I'm putting on my slide.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, Mizanur, we can start. I'm stopping my share.
Okay, so let me share it. Okay, so before the break, we actually talk about the different, sequences, the experiment sequences for different segment, and you can actually design your own sequences. So it's not actually fixed that you have to follow this particular sequence. But if you believe that you have some better ideas, you can always actually go for that. So now let us explore some ideas or how we can actually uh, do this discovery thing and the validation thing. So first we are actually going to cover the discover part, where we can actually discover our ideas in a more better way. And we want to actually discover whether our direction is right or not. Our hypothesis, the basic hypothesis we can actually test, and we can actually get the insight quickly. So the first test that we can actually do, or the experiment that we can actually do, is the customer interview. I believe many of you actually do that already. And what we kind of try to do is that we interview our focused customers to understand their jobs, their pains, their gains, and whether they're actually willing to pay or not. And this particular you know uh, sort of experiments are actually quite common in product development world, that we can actually go there and talk with our potential customers. And this is actually quite cost effective as well. So if you look, the cost is actually, we have two dots, that means it's less expensive, and also the setup time, we can actually do it pretty quickly. And also the problem with this particular experiment is that the evidence strength, if you look at the evidence strength, that's, we have 1 bar. So that means the evidence strength is actually not that great. If it was like say 4 or 5 bar, then we should have kind of like understood that yes, this is actually going to give us a better evidence that yes, this feature is needed. And one of the reason is that the customer interview is not gaining lots of evidence and strength, is that not all the customers are willing to give us the interviews. As much early as they can, so sometimes we don't get the right insight about the customer intention from a customer interview point. Then we have this partner and supply interviews. Is similar to our customer interview, but this is actually mainly focused on our supplier and partner, so this is actually focusing whether we can actually have the feasibility part. Like, it's not about desirability, it's about more about feasibility and viability. We want to build something, whether it's feasible, whether it's viable or not. We want to find these two things. So if you look at the two experiments that we talked about, so basically we have this desirability and feasibility. Here has orange color, that means yes, this particular experiments will support our desirability and the viability, not the feasibility one. Again, here we have this feasibility and viability is here, not the desirability. And means that the partner and supply interview is better for our feasibility and viability. And the evidence strength is good. If you look at here, it's almost 4 bars. So that means, like, yes, if we can actually have these experiments done with our partner and supplier, then we will have a better evidence that whether this is going to work for us or not. So the feasibility and viability will be better understood. We have this expert stakeholder interviews. This is also like customer interviews, but this is actually getting the buy-in support from our key players inside the organization. When you talk about the customer interview part, we actually focus our external buyers, like whether they are willing to pay us for the feature or not. Sometimes we need to actually do the same thing for our internal stakeholders, that okay, you guys are the investors, you guys are our directors, the boards. We are going to have this particular feature or this particular product launch. Are you guys going to buy in the feature or not, or buy going to the product or not? So this is actually an important interview as well. So we call it this part stakeholder interviews. It might not be all the stakeholders, but a certain segment of the stakeholders from whom we can actually get the evidence part that yes, this particular experiments or this particular idea is going to work for us. And this one is interesting. So this is another one, we call it a day in life. So what we try to do is that in a customer interview, we just ask customers about a certain set of questions. A day in life is more about a qualitative research. So what we do is that we try to follow that customer. So we ask the customer, can we actually see what you do in the daily life? So what sort of things that you're doing? So you're kind of like observing the customers, what they do, what sort of product they use, what are the features they are actually using. And this is kind of like we are living with the customer for a full day. We call it a day in the life. So we want to observe what they're actually planning, how they're actually doing things, and how we can actually add values and everything. And sometimes this is actually more about the desirability of our product. And when we are actually having spending more time with customer, we understand their jobs, their pains, their because our customers about their time. So for example, not everyone is going to allow you to be with them for whole day and observe them. So maybe it has to be a kind of like a paid process where we get the customer insight by spending the time with them. And this is again another common thing, we call it discovery survey. So we try to actually have an open-ended questionnaire to our customers, a sample segment of customers, and we try to actually get the idea what they're actually thinking, what sort of product they are actually envisioning, what sort of features they actually want, about discovery study is more about, uncovering our value proposition, and we are trying to understand their customer jobs, their pains and their gains. And the discovery survey is actually not ideal for, determining what people will do or what sort of things they're actually planning to do, because it's not only the things they're actually going to do, they're going to do some other things as well. So discovery is kind of like you are trying to find more about your customer. So not necessarily that it will be a certain focus segment, it can be more. So these sort of things are you can actually follow for your discovery based experiment. Now, if you're into the digital products, so for example, you are developing a digital product, and most of our product and services are kind of like having a digital footprint at this moment. So if you are a technology-based startup or you are working with technology, everything is actually available online, whether through app or web. And if you have a product, which is might be a retail product, but you still have, your websites and other information where you can actually gather this trend analysis. So what we do, we try to get the search trend analysis, like what are sort of search people are actually performing. So for example, your search engine, your web app, e-commerce site, say, if you look at this moment, during this pandemic situation, the most searched item may be with the coronavirus, the mask, the hand sanitizers, the vaccinations, and everything. Now, if you want to have a product line, maybe it will be good for you to actually check the search trend analysis, and based on the country, based on the region, you can actually find that what people are actually looking for at this moment. And if you have this option that, okay, we are producing, say, mask for general purpose, now we want to produce mask for this corona situation, you can actually do that based on the search trend analysis, because you know that this is quite evident that people will only search the things they're actually looking for or they are kind of like interested in. So search trend analysis is one of the key discovery experiments that we can actually do. And sometimes what we do is that we kind of like get data from third-party companies, like say market research data, but search trend analysis is kind of like looking for the new trends from our different providers, like say search engine analysis or market analysis part. But rather than going through old market research data, you are actually trying to look for the new trends. And similarly, we call it the search trend analysis. Is almost in the similar pattern. We say the web traffic analysis, like what sort of web traffic that you are actually getting for which particular product. So for example, if you are part of a e-commerce company where we are actually selling different products, say thousands of products, but your web traffic analysis will say which particular product segments is actually getting the traction. So you collect those data, you do report, and you do analysis to look at the customer behavior pattern. And at this moment, one of the most key concept of any app or any web design or particular digital product design, we focus on the user experience. So we try to actually make the user experience better so that our app or our service becomes more engaging to our end customers. So web traffic analysis, and if you are building an app, you can also do the click tracking, like which particular segment they're actually clicking, to understand what sort of behavior the customer is actually having, what sort of behavioral pattern they're actually following. So this is a very quick to do things for web traffic analysis, but the duration has to be longer, because you can't just analyze your web traffic for 1 day or 1 week. You have to actually analyze this for a certain period of time, so maybe a month, maybe say a couple of months, to understand what is actually happening. And another popular one for the discovery part is the discussion forum. So we can actually have some sort of discussion forum. Most of the digital products, they have some discussion forums where our customers actually come and ask for the features, what sort of features they are actually expecting from us, what if we actually product or service, or issues they are facing. So a discussion forum can be very productive part or useful part of experiments where we uncover the unmet jobs and pains and gains from the customer perspective regarding our product and services. So if a particular segment of customer is not happy, I think I was looking at one of the memes online that Zoom is getting lots of low reviews, and the reason is that all the students who are actually having online classes, they don't want to have the online classes, so they are actually giving the low ratings to App Store and Play Store so that Google or Apple Store takes out the application for the lowest rating. So this is a kind of like, interesting thing. So if you take the negative part out, but still you will actually get an insight what is actually happening with your product or services, whether your customers are happy or what sort of services they are actually lacking, what sort of service or feature they are actually expecting you to have. So discussion forums, though it sounds very old, but this is a very cost-effective way to actually know your customer needs. Then Salesforce feedback, for example, if you are actually selling your products, when you are actually going to the market to sell your product, you can actually get the feedback from your salespersons, like what are the things the customers are actually giving us feedback for. For example, you are selling a retail product, say shampoo, but it's actually okay for the certain segment of the customers, but others are not using it, or they're giving feedback like I didn't like the smell, I didn't like the color, the quantity is small, the price is too much. So these are the feedback that you need to consider. And this is actually more about desirability. It's not about viability, because you are already having something to actually to offer to the customer. So you get those feedback from your Salesforce to actually get the desire of the customer. So if you want to actually build a new feature, you can just go to the customer and say that, okay, now we are selling this, now we want to sell this as well. Will you be interested or not? So Salesforce feedback is also important. And then we have this customer support analysis. So customer support analysis is something we always have. So we all have customer support line for our products and services, and most of the time, rather than complain or issues that we having, we also have lots of requests from customer support that, okay, this particular feature is missing, maybe if we have this feature, customer will be happy. So not only we analyze the customer request, we also actually need to track the customer needs as well. So what sort of features they are looking for, what sort of product they are looking for. So your customer support must have some sort of tracking mechanism where they can actually record your customer needs. So you call it customer support analysis experiments. So you can actually ask your customer support guys that, okay, when a customer calls for a certain service, you can actually just say that, okay, we are having this, or will they be interested to actually have some sort of features or not, or if there is any feature that is missing in your product that our customer would love to have. So we can actually utilize all our possible channels to get those ideas. And sometimes what we do is that we do online ad, and the market is actually really big for online ad. It's a billion-dollar markets, and we use online ads for almost everything, whether it's our event, our product, our service. We try to sell more. So online ad can be a clear, or an ideal way of quickly testing our value proposition. So when we have our customer segment defined, we can just put some online ad and see whether it actually attracts our customers or not, the amount of customers that we are looking for to scale our business, whether it scales well or not. So online ad can be another way of discovering your potential ideas, whether it's going to work or not. It's a very evident strength, because we almost have a 3 bars here. So that means, yes, whatever result we are actually getting from online ad is going to be a good evidence that, okay, this has been desired or this has been actually looked for by the customers. But also you have to understand that it might cost you more, because most of the time online ads are not free. You have to spend a good amount of money to get the insight from the customer. So the decision is actually based on you, whether you want to save your cost and or save your time, or your need more or less evidence strength, is completely up to you. Then similarly, we can have link tracking. So we can actually, like the ad tracking. So online ad, we actually have this link tracking part. So you create an online ad and you kind of like add some tracking, so that you can actually know that from where you are actually getting those leads, or whether it's being liked or not, whether the customer is actually coming from different sources or not. So link tracking can be a very important one, and it's more about the desirability. It's not about feasibility or viability. It's like desirability. Like, okay, you announce a product, it might be a dummy product, just create a link, post it somewhere online, maybe your blog, your website, and you just go there and see that if your customers are actually clicking the link or not. Then we, based on this link part, we also actually have a feature stub. So what we call is that we kind of like create a simple experimentations with a feature that is actually coming soon. So for example, we want to create a new feature in our service, say it's a digital service. So what we do is that we create a demo service, we call it a stub. So we create a feature stub that is actually going to be there soon, and we put it in our web services or maybe in our app somewhere, that okay, this is coming. So when they actually see that in our website or in our apps, they can actually click it. So once they click it, you actually know that, okay, whether the customer is actually interested about this particular feature or not. But one thing we need to understand is that it is not about a very important feature. For example, you want to build a mobile banking feature, and now your feature stub is like online payment transfer, say from bank to your credit card, or your credit card to bank. So that type of mission critical functionality should not be considered as a stub. It might be something like, okay, we want to send money through, say, instead of bank card, you can just have a transaction with your unique generated code. So that can be a feature stub, that whether people are interested or not to have that feature. So this particular type of discovery is actually more evident, because once people are actually clicking on those things or visiting that particular feature in your application or your web, this makes you understand that, okay, people are really looking forward to this service. And then we have this common test. This is for digital as well. We call it 404 test, page not found test. So what we do is that it's a little bit riskier, but it's a very faster thing. So for example, rather than building a stub, so what we call a stub is this kind of like a dummy section or dummy page or dummy product that it will work like actual product, but it's kind of like a demo product. But 404 test is something like, we don't have built anything yet, but maybe we know that there will be this particular feature. So we put a link over there, and when the user or the customer clicks it, it shows that, okay, this page is not there, or we are not, the product is not yet ready. So this kind of experimentation is very quick, and and it gives you the understanding that customers are interested to actually have this particular feature or not. Don't run it for a long time, because else it will be a little bit problematic, because once the customer is trying to click it and they say kind of like they're seeing that, okay, the page is not available or the feature is not available at this moment, it will create kind of like they'll not be happy to have these sort of things happening again and again. So what we try to say is that when you have 404 test or page not found or feature not found test, we have to do it for maybe few hours, and we have to come to a quick conclusion and come to to an analysis based on the data quickly, rather than we open it for say week or months that okay, we want to have that feature and let the customer see a missing page or missing feature information. So don't do that. Run it for a small sprint, duration, and try to gather the data as quickly as possible. And another one that we have is the email campaign. So I think this is one of the most common way of discovering our ideas that whether it's working or not. So we are very well familiar with email campaign, and we send different email messages to our different segments of customers, different times, just to actually make sure that yes, we are getting not willing to be part of the email campaign. And honestly, for me, most of my email campaigns, mails are actually going to my spam box, because other than the services that I like, I don't want to actually being bothered about the email campaigns. So previously it was one of the most commonly used tools, and we used to send thousands of emails every day, but now it's more about face-to-face. So you can't actually replace your face-to-face customer interviews with email campaigns. So maybe you can't do say 10,000 face-to-face customer interaction, but through email campaign you can do it bigger way. But for me, the understanding that even if I can do 100 face-to-face customer interaction, rather than say 10,000 emails, only 50 or say 500 clicked or completed the campaign, I think the 100 face-to-face interaction will be much more valuable. So you need to design your campaign that way. And similarly, like email campaigns, we can actually go for the social media campaign.
Mizanur, we can't hear you. Hi, Mizanur, we cannot hear you. Your video is frozen. Let's wait for him to join back.
Hello. Sorry guys, I think my connection dropped. So
Yeah, sure, no problem.
So that's actually kind of like our part of the world, the problem that we face, inconsistency. So social media campaign is actually something that we are doing, kind of like frequently at this moment. And I think one of the most promising way to understand our customers are at this moment is actually social media campaigns, because all of us, whether it's like a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, whatever, sort of social tools that you're actually using, most of your part. And also the runtime, because you just can't take any decisions for a 1 week or a 1 day social campaign. If social media campaign a longer period of time, say 6 months, 1 year, so the runtime is actually a bigger one. But if you look at the evidence scoring strength, it's actually a good way to get the evidence part that yes, it's actually working. And then we have this referral program. So this is actually the one with, very old method of discovering a desirability part and the viability. So we try to promote product and service to our customers through referrals. So we want to actually know how, the customers are actually liking the product, whether they are actually willing to share it. And if you look at this in a different way, we create these referral programs everywhere. So if you are a new customer, we ask them, okay, why don't you invite say 10 or 20 customers, and if they join through your referral, maybe your subscription will be free for say 2 months or 3 months. So this is actually kind of like we trying to get this new customers through word of mouth, through our digital codes, and we are rewarding our customers to actually get people onboarded. So this is actually kind of like if you are trying to test your product, that how fast you can actually grow organically, referral program is one of the best way to actually discover that. And another concept, this is actually a new one. So hopefully if you are not into digital product, a real, say for example, you are a retail customer or you are developing a physical product, then this can be very vital for you. We call it a 3D print. So what we try to do is that since we have 3D printers available everywhere in this world, so we try to create the exact product that we wanted to build in a 3D printer. So, and we can actually take it to the customer. Say for example, you are building a new mobile. So rather than you actually creating the handset fully, you can just create a dummy using a 3D printer, which will look exactly like the actual phone. And you can take it to the customer like, okay, this is actually what we are trying to build. So would you be interested if we actually bring this? So this 3D printer actually part focuses more about desirability, feasibility, and viability. So we can actually rapidly test that whatever physical solutions that we are actually providing to our customers, whether it's going to be helpful for them or not. So this is one of the new techniques that physical product development follows. We call it 3D printing. And then we have this paper prototype. So basically what we do is that in 3D printing, we actually build the actual product. In paper prototype, we actually sketch on a paper and we actually, represent this to our customer. Like, okay, this is a paper prototype. We try to actually going to do this, we are going to do that. What is your understanding? Say for example, you want to build a new app. Rather than you build the app, you can actually take the design to your paper, draw it and show it to your customer. Like, okay, this is actually the look of our applications that we are actually building. If you click this, you are going to do this. If you are click this, you are going to have this particular feature. So this is a paper prototype that we can actually build. And then we have this concept called storyboarding. So storyboarding, we already know about it. If you are actually focusing on visual thinking, and we have so many visual thinkings, practices going on. And what we are actually trying to do is that storyboarding is more about, discovering your ideas. And this is actually kind of like, brainstorming part. Like, what are the, things that we actually need, how to visualize them, what will be the interaction experience. So we use storyboarding for those situations where we are actually trying to brainstorm our different scenarios for our value proposition and solution with customers. So this is actually another well-known way. I think this is the last one for our this section, if I'm not wrong, or we have a couple of more. So data sheet, this is, I'm going to very quickly because we have to cover a few more. So data sheet is actually similar to our paper prototype. So, but this is actually kind of like a simple data sheets, like what sort of, specification that we have. It's like, when you are actually buying a laptop, what we actually go through is the simple summary, or maybe you are buying a phone, we are actually first look at the specification. We call it data sheet, like, okay, what are the, RAM of this mobile phone? What is the camera, front camera, back camera? How much display it is, whether it's a, LED or, simple Gorilla Glass. So lots of things we actually check. And then we take the actual phone and we test it out, then we actually buying it. So data sheet is very important. So if you are actually having some sort of data sheet, what your customers or partners are actually looking for. So it can be a simple feature list or specifications. So those are part of your data sheet. It's a simple one pager, so it doesn't have to be a very long, very simple and intuitive. And then again, you can actually have some more details, like if you're not happy with your data sheet, but you want to actually sell your product. So what you do is that, or service, you create a brochure. So you actually mock up your physical brochure and your imagined values, you create those and you give it to your customer. For example, you want to come up with a new housing business, but you don't have the whole business model yet, but you want to experiment with the customer. So you can create a mock brochure and actually kind of like mimic that, okay, what sort of imagined value proposition that you are having, and you get the desirability, feasibility, and viability from your customer, that okay, this is actually working or not. And then again, the simple thing, we call it the explainer video. Sometimes we actually, if people don't want to go through this data sheet and this brochure, so we can actually create a short video. And most of the time, if you look at the product launches, whether Apple product launches or Google or Microsoft, they actually do a simple live session rather than, giving you the specification sheet or the brochure. They actually present you to what the product does, and we found it very engaging and compelling, because if you look at the Apple product launch, it is one of the most anticipated event in the world. So every time there's an Apple event, we expect something new is coming up. So even those during this presentation, they actually shows us the new devices, explains to us the pricing and everything within a very short time. So explainer videos can be sometime helpful. So you can actually shoot explainer video, place it somewhere in your social media or your website, and let your customer know that what is actually happening, what sort of features that is actually coming up. And this is actually another one, we call it a boomerang. So that's an interesting concept. So in boomerang, what you do is that if you have ever thrown a boomerang, you know that you throw it and it will actually come back to you. So in boomerang concept, what we do is that we perform a customer test, but what we do is that we use an existing competitor product. So for example, we want to bring a new toothpaste in the market. Rather than we bring it, build the whole thing based on the existing toothpaste in the market, we actually try to gather the insight of the customer and do a value proposition based on that. For example, we go to a customer and say that, okay, you have this toothpaste. Now, what are the missing things in this toothpaste? And if we want to build a toothpaste, what will be the things that you will be looking for in the new toothpaste? So this is actually kind of call it the right way of getting the insight. So you are actually getting the idea from your existing market. So even without building anything, you can actually get the potential customer input from the existing market products. So we call it a boomerang one. And this is actually not kind of like, one of the things that we can actually consider is that what is my branding over here. So we are actually not saying that you are going to brand it as yours, but we are actually trying to get the insight of customer, like what is actually missing. So if you want to bring something new, what sort of things they will be actually expecting, and whether they will be actually expecting or not. For example, if you want to bring, say, a new toothpaste, maybe there will be a question like, we already have 100 plus toothpaste in the market, so what's new? So that's something we need to work on. And pretend to own, this is something, it's a non-functioning requirement. So what we do is that we assume that it is actually with us, but it's actually not. So we call it a Pinocchio experiment. So that means, like, for example, I say, okay, you are going to have the new iPhone, say 12. Now it's not even in the market maybe. So what will you do if you own it? So we say that pretend to own. So pretend to own is actually kind of like getting the idea, like, okay, whether your customer is going to use it or not, the usefulness of your idea, whether customer will feel like, okay, we can actually do that, or we can actually use it for our purposes. So we call it pretend to own, that we'll pretend that we are owning that feature or product, but it's actually not there. So it's more about finding the desirability of the idea, that whether customer will want it or not. And lastly, I think this is one of the most common thing that we do in our product training classes. We call it a product box. Even I myself, when I teach product owner classes, I use this technique a lot, the product box. So we give customer like, okay, design your own product. And, and kind of like we want to get that, okay, what sort of features, what sort of benefits we can actually visualize from this product box, so that we want to sell someone, or we give it to a customer, what sort of actually value proposition we are actually adding, what sort of features that you are offering, what sort of benefits that we are offering. And if we have to sell it as a box, whether people are going to buy it or not. So this product box concept is very common, and I believe lots of us actually use it for the new idea generation to make sure that, okay, this is actually kind of like giving you the clear idea, like what you are selling, what you are actually trying to build. And this is also another known concept. We call it speedboat. So this is actually more about, we use it mainly in retrospective as well, but in product design, we can also actually use the speedboat technique, and it's a gaming technique. So you can actually use it different purposes. And what we try to get through the speedboat technique is the same way we do the retrospective. We try to find out, what is the potential, what is the, reason why the customer is being slowing down, what are the potential threats, what are the opportunities. So everything is actually done similar to the way we do the retrospective, but for the product perspective, like what are the opportunities we have, where we can actually go, what are the potential problems that we have, but everything's done in a visual way, so we can actually see what is actually happening. So speedboat can be another interesting way of actually discovering your product ideas, like whether it's going to work or not. And the last thing is actually cart sorting. So it's more about prioritization, like you have lots of customer insights from your different tests and everything, put them on the card, and we can actually sort those cards, like what is the most important one for your customer to actually have. Since we are still talking about discovery part, so we are actually going to discover what are the needs. So it's more about the prioritization. Say you have said 20 different insights from your customers. Now, based on which insights you are going to work for the next iteration or in your future product release. So it's this kind of card sorting can be important. It's nothing but prioritizing your product needs and ideas. And another one, the buy a feature. We also use this a lot when we do a product development classes, that, okay, even if I give you some money to buy something with a demo currency, or say maybe we use some sort of dot voting. So if we have tons of feature available, which particular feature that would love to buy or select from this. So it's also for prioritization technique that we can actually understand what are the customer wants. For example, you have 1 month time to launch a feature. Now you have 10 features in the list. Which one to choose? So let your customer decide that, okay, given the situation that you can choose one feature, which one it should be. So that can give you an idea about your desirability, that, okay, what is the feature or the product the customer actually want to have. Now, these are the different, almost like 30 plus, ways we talked about to discover your ideas, like what sort of tools we can actually use that our ideas are fine. So we are actually trying to discover the right way. Now, assume that we have discovered, for example, we want to go through this, buy a feature, we liked it, this is the one we are going to use for our desirability finding. Now, how to validate them? So now the topic that we are going to talk about more about validating your ideas. So whether your idea is making sense or not. So we first discovered, now we are going to validate. So the validate part is actually about like how we make sure that this is actually working. So one first thing that we do is the clickable prototype. So what we do is that, like the functional stuff that we have, so clickable prototype is something like a digital representation of your future application or future product. So rather than you building the whole thing from from the start, you just make a clickable prototype so that you understand the interaction, you understand how customer is actually using the product, whether it's usable or not, rather than you spend a lot of money and time developing the actual product and then finding out customer is not using it. So it's better to actually have a clickable prototype. And then again, we have this concept, we already talked about it. I think one of the most favorite and most used concept for any product development, we call it MVP, the minimum viable product. We are not building the actual product, but we are just having a product that is, we call it minimum viable. Now, we take the minimum viability concept in a different level. We call it a single feature MVP. So in minimum viable product, you can have multiple features, but for us to actually go quickly to the market and validate, yes, our ideas work, we go for a single feature MVP. So you have a single feature, you don't build the actual product, just build the minimum viable product and take it to your customer. And if you look at the evidence strength, this is one of the highest one. And also the cost wise, you have to spend money because you are actually building a minimum viable product. So that means it's not 100% the product, but it's the with the minimum possible feature that you want to have. So that's actually the real product. It's not just a clickable prototype. It's actually the real product. So it will cost you money, and also it will cost you time to actually develop it. But if you look at the evidence strength, this is one of the best possible way to find out that whether it's actually working or not. And that's why most of the startups goes with this MVP concept, that we need to have a minimum viable product, take it to the market, get the customer feedback and refine it next time. And then we have this another one. This is a upgraded version of your MVP. We call it mashup. So mashup is kind of like we have this different minimum viable products and we mix them together. So we call them mashup. So these mashup functions are kind of like we combine multiple minimum viable products and deliver it through our existing service. So this is called a mashup, like we mix and match with different MVPs into a single umbrella. And this is also very high return evidence strength, so that we can actually know that whether our ideas are actually working or not, customers are liking or not. So this is actually something important. Then another one is the concierge. So concierge is another important way to validate whether it works or not. So what we're trying to do is that the previously when you are talking about clickable prototype and everything, those are digital using technology. Concierge service is more about manual. So it's giving you the more human part of the experience, whether your service is going to be used or not, whether customer is going to like it or not. So we are actually creating a customer experience, and we are delivering value manually, not through technology. And here people are involved. So in a concierge way, like we mostly use concierge in different hospitals or hotels. So we have this human interaction experience over there. And when you have this concierge service, we actually try to kind of like get the customer value, that what sort of, customer experience we are having, whether the customer is liking our product or not. And this is more about kind of like understanding your customer rather than, scaling up your business. So concierge should not be actually used for scaling up your business or ideas. It's more about, getting the feedback that whether customers is liking this or not. So rather than using technology in concierge, we actually use the human experience through our manual processes. Then another, this is actually the life prototypes. For example, if you are from a retail market, you want to actually build a product, or maybe you are from the housing industry that you are actually building an apartment. So what we call it is a life-size prototype. You do not have the actual product, but you create a prototype that will look exactly like this. And through our real world, we used to, previously used to make these prototypes bigger, have some sort of exhibition hall and show them. But now in the era of digital, we create these 3D models and share with our potential customer, and they can click and go through different angles, see them different way, have some different perspectives and viewpoints. So always the life-size prototype can be actually very useful for the customer to understand that, okay, this is going to be good. For example, if you are building a new laptop, but your laptop weight says 10 kilogram, I believe no one is going to buy it. We love laptops, but we want to make it, comfortable. We can actually carry it comfortably. 10 kilogram, is not a comfortable weight to carry as a laptop. Maybe I will not buy a laptop which is more than, say, 2 kilogram weight. So when you build this life-size prototype, it actually gives the customer actual feel of the product, like how it is going to look like, how big is it going to be, what are the features that I'm going to have. So it's kind of like, validates your idea, like what sort of things we are actually expecting and whether the customer's liking it or not. It's similar to the 3D print part. If you are actually thinking about that, okay, we are building the product. So even if using 3D, the only problem is that in 3D printer, we can actually have the real life-size prototype, because most of the 3D printers have some limitation regarding the size of the product. So you can actually create a bigger thing unless you have those industry grade 3D printer where you can actually build anything with the scalable size. So you have to get the understanding. So another part we can actually validate is a simple landing page. So for example, you are selling a new product or you are coming up with a new feature. You just create a simple landing page with some features and illustration and value proposition, and with some buttons and everything, so that you can actually track the interaction with the customer. We call it a simple landing page. It's not the actual product page. It's not actual, feature, but it's a simple landing page with some basic information, so that you can actually determine that whatever value proposition we are adding to the customers, whether customer is actually willing to adopt that. So whether they're actually liking this value proposition, they're coming to the page and they are actually clicking to different things. So this is actually a simple landing page concept. And crowdfunding, I believe this is actually quite popular. And you guys also know about crowdfunding. There are many crowdfunding sites available worldwide. And one of the most, used way of validating your product. So you just build a product, or you have an idea, you try to build a demo or prototype, shoot a video, you put it in a crowdfunding site, and people are, investing a small amount and funding your project, not from a single source, but lots of source, a small amount of money, large number of people, and we say crowdfunding. You can do a variation of internal crowdfunding as well. Say, for example, you can actually have a simple feature set or product ideas, and you can ask your internal customers, say, like your company employees, your management people, to actually buy in your ideas, like who is willing to invest on this particular product or ideas. So your internal crowdfunding can be another way to validate whether your idea is working or not. But you don't you have to remember that, you know, crowdfunding is a nice concept, so that you can actually get that your customer is buying your value proposition, they're actually willing to invest, that's fine. But crowdfunding is not a way to determine whether your business is going to be feasible or not. For example, you can raise a good amount of money for your venture or your product, but that doesn't make you, you know, feasible. So crowdfunding should be always to validate your business proposition, that whether customers are willing to actually buy in or invest in your product or feature. And then we have the pre-sale part. So pre-sale part is actually, you know, actual purchase, but it is like a kind of like, not like mock sell. It's actually a real sell. What we do is that in pre-sale is that we sell our features or products earlier. Then, okay, this is actually what is coming. So would you love to take this feature or product from us? So we actually pre-sell even before building the product. And we actually ask the customer that, okay, we are selling this, maybe the price is 100 rupees, but now we are selling pre-sale, so we are actually giving you in say 50 rupees, but you have to wait 3 months for this particular feature or particular product. So this is actually pre-sale event that you can actually validate that how much customer is willing to take the risk with your product or feature. And then we can do this validation survey. So it's a, you know, close-ended survey. So what we do is that we try to get the validation from the customer, whether the customer is disappointed or whether customer is happy, whether they are going to refer to a new customer, whether they are willing to continue to use our you know, products in the future or not. So we trying to validate whatever we have built, whether customer is actually going to use it or not. So it's a close-ended questionnaire. It's not an open-ended questionnaire. So that means like we have some fixed questions that we want to ask to our customers and some fixed response that customer has to choose from, say maybe yes, no, I agree, I disagree, something like that. It's not about getting their open-ended questionnaire, like they can enter anything, some text, they can write comments. It's not like that. It's more about a closed-ended questionnaire. So another concept, I think we are almost there. A couple of more concepts, then we are actually done with it. So we'll be actually going through another concept called Wizard of Oz. So it's not the famous, you know, book. It's more about, you know, different concept. So we actually call it the Wizard of Oz. We are trying to create the customer experience and value delivering manually. So it is actually like the concierge service, but it's actually little bit different. So what we actually we do is that it's kind of like the movie Wizard of Oz, where the wizard himself doing lots of different things and you know, getting those witches out and the, you know, having a happy and good ending with the movie, that okay, Wizard of Oz has actually taken care of all of their problem. So similarly, this concept is that like concierge, you have a person involved with the visible customer, like whether you're in a hospital or in a hotel, a person is actually involved with you. But in Wizard of Oz, that person is actually invisible. You are getting the same service, but not from the physical person involved. But we are doing in the back end manually. But here, the person is actually not visible. So this is actually what we do is that if we want to actually learn from our customer, we want to actually capture that what is the values that you're actually adding to our customer, what they're liking on, what they're not liking. So Wizard of Oz can be one of the way we can do that. So it's a little bit different from our concierge service, but it's a good one. And another one is the mock sell. So that's actually, previously we talked about this pre-sell, but this we're actually talking about mock sell. So mock sell is kind of like opposite of pre. In pre-sell, we are actually taking the actual money, actual sell. Mock sell is like, not the real sell. It's more about, we want to customer, okay, I want to sell this product. Do you want to buy it? Yes, fine. There's no, financial transaction or anything, no payment or anything. So mock sell is more about, different price points, understanding whether customer is willing to buy your product or not, but without any physical transactions. So this can be also kind of like validating your ideas, whether it's working or not. Remember during the initial few minutes of the class, we talked about the subscription fee, say $20 for a month. After 3 months, we found out that, okay, 95% of the people are leaving the free trial period and they are not willing to pay $20 a month. Maybe you can actually talk about different price point, like, okay, I give you $5 a month or $10 a month. Which one will you pick? So mock sell can be used in such cases where you can actually sell your product with a fake money or fake price points just to get the idea like whether customer is interested or not. No real transactions. And letter of intent, this is actually a simple approach. So what we do is that if you are actually having a B2B business, then letter of intent can be very useful. So what we do is that we write a short contract that is simple, and there is no legal terms or anything. So it's kind of like why you're having this service or why you're having this product. So it's a simple letter of intent, and it is actually between the B2B customer segments, so business to business customer segments, so that you as a business send it to your partners who are also a business, just to understand the intent, that why you are actually doing this. So this is not a legal document, it's a simple letter of intent. And once your customer reads it, understand your intents, then they will actually decide whether they are actually going to be onboarded with you or not. So this is actually for example, it can be for your product, it can be related to a feature. So you can actually do this for letter of intent. But this is not for B2C, because we know the B2B part is easier to handle with such cases, because you're dealing with business, not your consumer. But if you are in a B2C market where your customer segments is very large, this model might not be, worthy to try. So I think we're almost at the end of our slides. So one more slide after this. So we are going to talk about two more techniques. One is the pop-up store. So for example, if you are a retail business and you have some new products, maybe you can come up with this pop-up store concept where you open temporarily to sell goods. It's not a actual, store. It's just a pop-up store. It's a temporary, for a month or maybe 2 months, we want to sell some of our, products. And it actually gives you the chance to interact with your customer face to face, like what they're looking for, whether they're liking the product or not. And this kind of concepts can be very useful. So pop-up store is something like, say, for example, you want to come up with a new burger joint, not actually ideal for B2B business, So if it's like a B2B business, instead of pop-up store, we can actually consider a booth, which is actually a small one. Pop-up store can be a, much bigger concept than a booth concept. So booth is like where you just share the information rather than actually having the physical store. And lastly, this is actually from our technical part, but still it's applicable for any product development. We call it extreme programming spike, or simply spike model. So if you want to actually try something revolutionary, like, okay, whether it's going to work or not, how to actually do it. So what we do in extreme programming is that we do a spike, and what we do is that we try to explore potential technical and design solutions. So for example, we want to do it this way, so why not run a small solution and build it and see whether it works or not. So it kind of like a very popular term in extreme programming. we run Spike before we decide whether we are going to implement that solution or not. So we just run some technical spikes, we call it, and come up with a decision. Similarly, for product development, we can actually do that. We, instead of doing the whole thing in a different approach, we try to find out about the feasibility, whether it's feasible to do it or not. And this can be very important to actually discovery part, that yes, we are actually trying to find out whether this particular solution is feasible for us or not. So we are actually discovering the feasibility here in Spike. So technically we are using this term, but usually you can use for any particular product development. And one thing we need to understand, in a typical agile world, we will go through certain iteration and incremental way. Spike is a shorter in duration. It's not a typical iteration where we'll take 2 weeks or 4 weeks, something like that. Spike is usually 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, or maybe maximum a week long spike. So we try to keep it shorter so that we can actually take decision quickly and come up with a better solution. So this is actually, we call it extreme programming spike, but you can actually use it as a product development spike. And what we are actually trying to do with this simple, tools and techniques is that we're trying to figure out how we can make sure that our ideas are the right ones through the discovery phase that we have talked about, and whether is validated that yes, it's going to work. So if you focus on these two, the discovery and the validation, then we can actually convert our whole ideas from this zigzag and unclear path to a simple, clear business line. And once we do that, we'll have a better result with our business. But that doesn't ensure that we validated our idea, we discovered the right thing, but still it will mean that our business will be 100% good, or we will be 100% successful in our business. So the idea is that we are trying to minimize the risk. That doesn't mean that we will be 100% successful. So that's it from me. So if you have any questions, I would love to answer. So let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mizanur bhai.
Yeah. So let's see. So I have some question from Gaurav. Do we really use all these ways to desirability of our product ideas? Actually, we don't. So basically, when we have this, different ways to test our different ideas, we do not expect that we will mix and match 4 or 5 different things. So if you go back to here, say for example, if we go back to our sequences, remember the first we actually talked about the sequences. So here, if you go to our sequence, you'll see that there are already prescribed some, ways to do a certain segment of work. For example, for B2C software sequence, it's different sequence. For B2B to C or highly regulated sequence, we have something different. But you have to choose which particular one you want to go with. It doesn't mean that you have to do different tests for same idea, say 10 or 20 different, tests. You just pick one particular one and go with it. The whole concept is that before you make any decision that yes, we are going with this ideas to implement, like as a product owner or a product manager or a product team, make sure you understand that whether the idea is the correct idea or not, and then whether it validates your business needs or not. So your desirability, your feasibility, viability, you should have a clear picture, and these particular tools will allow you to discover that. So not necessarily you have to use all these 40 plus tools and everything, but you can end up using 1 or 2 tools for your products and features.
Yeah, there were two more questions earlier. One was, what are the key things to be considered when it's a retail product, and ideas that have to be validated? That is one question from, I think, Shobit Sinha.
So for retail one, if you think about retail products, now one of the things you can do is that we talked about the retail product part is that you can have the store part where you can actually have pop-up store. You have the product, or you can use the boomerang that we talked about, because even if you are thinking about a retail marketplace, already things are available there. So I believe you are not coming up with a product that is not in the market. Maybe you're coming up with a better product, but you can use the boomerang technique to actually find out more about your service will be, desirable or not. And another thing is like you can go with the 3D printing, concierge service. So there are lots of different, ways you can actually validate your idea that whether it's going to work or not.
Right.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and one last one, I guess, was from Rupa. What should we consider while striking a balance between spending and minimizing risk?
Yes, so that's actually a decision, and it's like the typical agile way. Agile, kind of like gives us the options. What are the things are, but it doesn't come up with a prescription. Similar here, these tools are there, and it comes with these options like which one is going to cost you more, which one is going to cost you more time. Now as a team, the program team, you actually take the decision on yourself, like which approach is suitable for you. For example, if you are a big MNC, you don't have a problem with budget, so you can actually go with costlier approach. But if you are a startup who are struggling with your budget part, you are not necessarily going to have highly expensive ways of doing it. So rather you will try to do things quickly and cheaper way. So you have to decide on the balancing part. Can you name the book? Yes, definitely. Let me share the book part. So that's we call it Testing Business Ideas. So this is a book that you are going to get. It's a very nice book. Just a second. Let me. So let me show you the desktop so you'll understand what I'm talking about. So just so this is actually the book that I was talking about. So if you go to this website, you actually found about it, the strategizer. So the testing business ideas. And what I will do is that I will share the slide with you guys as well. And in the slide, I will actually put the link. So I will actually add one more slide in the last page, and we will actually have the book link over there.
That'll be great.
So thanks a lot.
Everyone, any more questions? I think, okay.
Okay, great. So thanks, Manoj and Priya, for arranging this session. Thanks a lot for me. And we would love to actually, thanks to PMI for this opportunity. And hopefully we can actually collaborate more in future and learn from each other.
Thank you, Mijan.
Definitely. So, Mizanur bhai, thank you so much.
Thank you, Manoj.
We had a wonderful. Who's this? Can everybody else be on mute, please? Yeah. Thank you so much, Mizanur bhai. It was a wonderful learning session. A lot of new things we could learn, especially about testing new business ideas and how we can develop products in an agile way. So, heartful thanks to you. Bharat bhai, our president from Mumbai chapter, we would like to give you a small token of appreciation in terms of certificate. Bharat bhai, over to you.
Thank you, Manoj. Am I audible clearly? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mizanur bhai. This is a good, wonderful things that I have come to understand business practices and testing, where you narrated very clearly in simple way all 49 tools you have touched. That's a wonderful thing with only 4 parameters: cost and setup and running cost and setup cost. I mean, it's a small thing, but it's a very deeply you have given in a very simple way. I really appreciate your this thing. Kindly accept the certificate on behalf of Untitled Chapter, signed by me and Mr. Manoj. Please accept it and do join us again in future. Please give us your valuable times in our sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Bharat and Mr. Manoj. So thanks a lot, and we will hopefully collaborate again and again, and we'd love to have the same from you guys. So yeah, hopefully we'll
Definitely.
Yeah. And
We
thanks
will
a lot. I
definitely
accept the
collaborate.
certificate.
Yeah, and we'll definitely collaborate. I mean, we'll keep having these sessions. So, maybe next month we'll try to have another topic from you.
Thanks a lot.
And we loved your session today.
Thanks a lot, and
Yeah,
everyone
so-
have a good day and stay safe from this COVID-19.
Yes. Yeah, I think, and how is the situation there in Bangladesh, Mizanur bhai, if I can ask you?
So at this moment, we are not doing that good, but what we did, successfully as per the government, we actually reduced the tests somehow. So previously it was free, but now people have to pay 200 taka. So for poor people, it's still a lot of money. So they don't go for testing. So we have actually reduced our testing by 20 to 25% in last 1 week.
Oh, okay.
So we are expecting it to be more, but we actually reduced it.
You are basically from Dhaka.
I'm from Dhaka, and from my family, my parents. So we had 4 corona positive patients in my family alone. So
My God.
So they are all recovered. So thanks to Almighty that they are safe and sound. But things are actually a little bit bad in Bangladesh. Actually, not that great.
Yeah, even in India, things are not that great. We already crossed 8.2 lakh numbers today. More than 5 lakh have recovered, but still, it's not a good, healthy sign. So,
Yeah, you guys stay safe and healthy.
yeah. Thank you so much. And
Thank you very
all
much.
of you all participants who were there in today's session, please stay safe. And we will meet you next week. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah.
Bye.